Hello and welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go a little mad sometimes. I'm Jack Ellis,
And I'm Matt Ellis.
and today we are actually in a new recording studio. Figured we'd upgrade, and we are also going to be talking about the new film Cocaine Bear. Uh, this movie was released in February, I believe, and I don't know if it's on, if it's out on Blu-ray or streaming yet. But anyway, we're going to talk about it. I know this isn't like conventional horror, but we've talked about movies like Seven or Vengeance or something like that, so I think we can make a pass for this one.
Also, it is streaming on Amazon.
It is? Oh,
Yeah.
nice. So, yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into it. In 1985, a drug smuggler is on a plane that's about to go down, and he starts throwing bags of cocaine onto the mountain. He attempts to escape, but he ends up hitting his head on the way out and ends up falling to his death in Knoxville, Tennessee. And after all the bags are on the ground, a camping couple are out when the bear consumes some of the dropped cocaine and starts ferociously killing both or one of them. And yeah, so that's the beginning. What do you think of the beginning?
Well, the beginning, the part where he was throwing the bags of cocaine out had me just really confused. I was just like, man, what the hell are you doing? Like, it'd probably be cheaper to literally throw money out of the plane.
Yeah.
But I mean, we find out that the reason he did that was because that's actually protocol in the drug community, is that if your plane is going down, you're supposed to throw the drugs out of the plane near the area where he dropped them. So, and then they would just come by later and pick it up. And so that's actually, we find out how it happened. Like, I had two theories on how the bear got his hands on cocaine in the first place. One of them was that a group of dumbass campers decided to go out and do drugs in the woods, and when they did, they left their cocaine out, and the bear got a hold of it. Like, I mean, if you're from the country like we are, that's where people typically go to do drugs is they go out into the woods.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of figure maybe they got high and didn't really notice anything, and a bear came over, went through their stuff, and took some of the cocaine. I figured it was either that or that it was actually some sort of terrorist attack, like a terrorist in the area left the drugs out in an area with a high bear population, hoping a bear would consume some and start killing innocent people. As it turns out, it was neither. It was actually something even stupider. So,
Yeah. I think my first impressions when I saw the trailer is like a drug deal was going down in the woods, and then the bear ended up killing the dealers and ended up consuming all the cocaine, which isn't like far off from what happened. But yeah, honestly, I just thought the guy was just coked out of his mind and just started throwing bags out the window. But uh, I think the later on it starts to make sense. Um, and yeah, as far as the opening scene, like perfectly sets the tone for how just borderline stupid this movie is gonna be.
I mean, this movie is basically like The Ghost in the Darkness and Beast, only it's set in North America, and the humans who are handling the situation are much more stupider.
Yeah, the best way I could probably describe this movie is if like Beast was made by Beavis and Butthead.
Or maybe the best way to describe this movie would be like Sharknado, only it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. So we then go to Northeast Georgia, where a middle schooler, Dee Dee, lives with her mother, who's a nurse named Sari. I don't know why it's not just Sarah. But Dee Dee skips school with her friend Henry to paint quote-unquote Panther Falls. And on their way there, they find I don't know what it's called, like a package of cocaine. And
A kilo.
A kilo, yeah. And so they ingest some of it before they see the bear himself high on coke. And then Sari actually ventures into the forest to try and find them. And she ends up finding a park ranger and a wildlife activist, named Liz and Peter. And the three find Henry, who climbed a tree and hiding from the bear. And the bear attacks, sending Peter stumbling through a pile of cocaine and slashing Liz in the process. Attracted to cocaine-coated Peter, the bear ends up killing him, ignoring Henry, Sari, and then the two flee into the forest, and Liz tries to get help. So this scene is probably the first big part of the movie. Or as far as like what you expect when you hear the title Cocaine Bear. And honestly, I really do like this part of the movie. There are a couple things though. Two, like, I want to say like 12-year-olds, they just both eat a spoonful of cocaine and just nothing happens. They don't develop an addiction to it. They don't get any more hyper than they were. It just seriously has no effects on them. But what I was thinking when I was watching the scene is, like, if you have a parent who lived in, like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, they'll usually be like, oh, kids today are always on their phones. We used to go out and play when we were kids. And, like, shit like this would actually happen. And, like, you know, I mean, say what you want about iPad kids, they're not fucking doing cocaine in the forest. But, and also, this is when the chaos sort of comes to a head. And, I like that the guy gets covered in cocaine and he starts attacking. But, yeah, what do you think?
I thought this scene was actually pretty funny. Like, the park ranger is definitely a character. Like, she actually runs away when the bear is attacking them, even though she has more of a responsibility to try to protect them. But, you know, she doesn't. And I think also, it wasn't this during this part of the movie when that guy got jumped in the bathroom.
No, I think that's later, actually.
Okay, well, yeah, so, I mean, I thought this scene was pretty good. You know, I thought that they actually handled the situation fairly well for how unpredictable something like that is. And, I mean, I also noticed how the cocaine not only gave the bear, like, incredible energy, it also made it a whole lot smarter and more tactful. Like, it knew how to do things like, you know, hide out and sneak up on people and, you know, even swat the guns out of their hand. Like, you know, bears usually don't do that when they attack. They usually just straight up attack somebody.
Yeah. And also, I forgot one part of the movie, and this kind of leads into a bigger gripe I have with the movie. There's just too many goddamn plot lines. I mean, seriously, this movie is just called Cocaine Bear. I'm not expecting, like, an award-winning drama, but, like, there's, like, 8 different storylines we have to follow, and for a movie that seems just tailor-made for a bunch of stoned 14-year-olds, like, why did it go all Pulp Fiction with how many people it's trying to introduce into the story, when really all that happened was just a plane, like, cocaine fell out of a plane, and then a bear ate it and OD'd. Like, nobody died afterwards, like, except for the bear. But,
Wait,
yeah.
That's what really happened?
Yeah, what really happened was just, the bear ended up just eating a bunch of cocaine and then dying.
Right.
Yeah, but prior to this, the bear just, they find the person who jumped out of the plane and assume that it's what's his name? Sorry. Shoot. Yeah, a local detective named Bob thinks that it's connected to Sid White, who's a local drug kingpin, and so he goes off to try to find him, and yeah. So actually, in St. Louis, Sin sends his fixer, David, to recover the remaining cocaine, and David travels with a man named Eddie, Sid's son, who has grown some depression since his wife died and actually abandoned his own son, leaving him with Sid. At the forest station, David gets into a fight with people called the Duchamps Gang, 3 delinquents who cause trouble in the forest, and after David beats him, he's able to find out where some of the cocaine is, and shoot, I can't read this, sorry, and then the bear slaughters Vest, or no, I'm at the wrong part, sorry, technical difficulties, they end up finding out where the cocaine is, and then once Liv arrives back at the station, they're pursued by the bear. Liv accidentally kills Ponytail, one of the kids, by shooting him in the head, and then slaughters the other delinquent. And then the paramedics, Beth and Tom, arrive and collect Liz and put her in an ambulance after a brief fight with the bear. But then the bear continues to pursue them, and both of them are ended up killed by the bear. I can't read this with a goddamn straight face trying to remember all the shit that happened in the scene. It's just like...
And I like how, when, she drove off with what was the park ranger's name?
Liz.
With Liz in the back, with the back door open, and then the other paramedic ran in there, and, when the bear was running after, they were both telling him to close the door, but Liz, with a very faint voice from her injury, was just like, "Close the door, you jackass!" And what was really funny was that when she got back to the station, this was after the three forest punks got their asses handed to them. So, and those 3 were scared for their life from David, and she was scared of the bear. But they both didn't mention what they were scared of, but they assumed they were both talking about the same person. And then she thought they were talking about, they were also scared of the bear. They thought she was also scared of David, but she got back and said, "Damn, that thing is complete." They had said, "Damn, thing is completely crazy." And then she said, "Yeah, I know that. The thing took a bite out of my ass."
Yeah, jeez. And then after they lose control of the ambulance, they fall out and crash into a tree. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but goddamn. So yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and pause for this scene. So from the start, it's really funny, the scene where they get into a scuffle with the 3. When they get into a scuffle with the 3. Delinquents, and then they find out where the cocaine is, and they're walking around trying to find it. But then the scene at the station is just so funny, because the person gets shot in the head by accident, and then the bear shows up, and then he tries to kill the paramedic. And one of the paramedics, the guy with the mustache, you might know, is the guy from TikTok who's the angry retail worker, which I thought was really funny. It was very cool to see him in a movie, because I think he's really hilarious. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the scene. The scene with the ambulance is just drop dead hilarious to me, just because of how much shit happens. I saw this with my friends, and we just laughed so much after that because there's a scene where he's trying to get into the ambulance, and then the gurney slides out and starts skidding against the road, and then they crash into a tree, and it's just like, damn, that was probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
Pretty much. Let me just fill in on some
stuff.
What happens is she gets back to the station where the three kids just got their asses handed to them by David, and her plan, the park ranger comes up with a plan to where when the bear gets there and just says, she tells the one kid to open the door and she has her shotgun ready to shoot at it, but she still has her eyes closed when she shoots. So instead of shooting the bear, she accidentally shoots the guy, like in the head.
Yeah.
And then the paramedics arrive, try to help Liz, but the bear shows up. So then the lady paramedic takes off with Liz in the thing, and the guy catches up. He jumps in, but the bear chases after the ambulance while it's driving away, and gets the guy. And also Liz on her gurney falls out, and she just starts skidding on the road and dies from that. And then the driving paramedic just drives into a tree and flies out to her death. So yeah, it was a pretty screwed up situation.
Yeah, and the best part of it was like the 80s movies or music playing in the background of all of this. It was just a perfect music choice.
What was kind of weird, though, was that, this was basically a forest gang. Like, we've all heard of street gangs, we've all heard of prison gangs, but, I've never heard of a forest gang before.
They all looked like massive tweakers, so they're probably just out there smoking meth or something.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and also, there's a scene at the beginning of the movie that I wanted to talk about. I forgot about. Like, right after the opening credits, excuse me, there's a bunch of scenes of those, like, cheesy 80s commercials that told you, like, not to do drugs. And I always love those for some reason, just because, like, we had those dumbass presentations at school where university students would come in and do, like, little skits, and, like, I would go home and then Pee Wee Herman is telling me not to smoke crack, and honestly, that may have wanted me to smoke crack more, in all honesty, but I always there's some sort of dark comedy in those commercials that I always loved. But on to the rest of the movie. So Sari and Henry actually discover that Dee Dee left them a paint trail to, try to find out where she is. And David and Eddie are taken to the gazebo, but they find Bob, who holds them at gunpoint. The bear appears, but Bob distracts it with the bag of coke. Bob is suddenly shot fatally by Sid, who reveals he is under pressure by his superiors to retrieve the cocaine. On this part, I do, I like the, the part where, like, the bear actually lays down on one of the guys, and it's like, because his vagina is on my ear or something like that. And also the part where, the cop is like, drug charges since Nixon have been shit. Get ready for 30 years of shitting in a toilet in front of two other guys. It's just like, this movie is filled with so much dark comedy, and that's probably why I love it so much. But, other than that, I also kind of wonder about what, like, Sid's standing in the drug community is, because the beginning makes him out to seem like some sort of drug kingpin, but then we find out that he's being egged on by people above him to get the shit, and, like, he apparently has his own, like, fixer, sort of like, what's his name? Like Mike from Breaking Bad. And it's sort of just, it doesn't really matter to me. I can do real life research on the actual person, but, and I'm pretty sure this was Ray Liotta's last movie, so that's also pretty cool. But, yeah, other than that, I don't really got anything to say on this part. What about you?
I thought it was a pretty good part, like when, so David had one of the kids he beat up take them to the gazebo where they stashed the cocaine because the gang actually found it first. And they go there, and the cop actually is waiting for them to get there, and there's just this big situation where, like, the cop is on the gazebo and David is aiming his gun at him, and then the bear shows up, and yeah, like Jack said, it actually does go over and just lies down on one of the guys, and he even says it's a girl bear, and they're like, how do you know it's a girl bear? And then he just says, because its vagina is on my neck. And so, and the cop actually shoots two of David's fingers off, and so and David ends up saying later on, and his friend Rick puts the fingers in his pocket, and David just eventually says, look, it's all right, I got this. And then Rick just says, two of your fingers are in my pocket. And yeah, it just becomes a big situation where what's the detective's name? That was Bob. His partner comes over and actually shoots him to save the other guys because she's actually a dirty cop. And so that scene too, when they finally do all start to overlap, is pretty good.
Yeah. And so after that, Sari and Henry find a mourning Olaf, who leads them to Dee Dee's hiding place, the bear's cave containing its two cubs, revealing that the bear is a mother. Olaf leaves and is killed by the bear. Sid, Eddie, and David find the cave, which leads to a ledge behind the falls. The bear returns to the cave. Sarah, Henry, and Dee Dee jump into the water below to safety after holding Sid at gunpoint, I believe. And followed by Eddie and David, who quit the drug business together, and they all survive. However, Sid refuses to leave the bag of cocaine they found behind, and he shoots and wounds the bear, but is unsuccessful in killing it and is disemboweled by the bear and her cubs. And before we get to the ending, what do you think of this climax of the movie?
One thing I forgot to point out from earlier is that it actually does show the bear consuming cocaine because it just swallows an entire kilo whole, which, is why this movie is unrealistic. Like, I mean, this, if you've ever seen, like, in TV or movies, or, God forbid you've seen people do cocaine in real life, you notice that they typically don't do a lot. Like, even larger grown men don't do too much cocaine at one time. It's like, and I know
so you get an overdose, like,
right, and like, I know bears are bigger than humans, but still, a whole kilo, that would easily kill, that would kill an elephant.
Yeah, especially if it's good shit, which it's implied to be.
Right.
I swear to God, I've never done cocaine. But, like you said, fully grown adults will only maybe do, like, one or two lines, or however you call it. So, I don't know how I feel about it just swallowing an entire bag of cocaine. It's a funny visual, but I feel like that would just give the bear a heart attack. But, yeah, as far as the ending, I like the climax. It feels fitting to me. I feel like every character reaches its correct arc. And yeah, I just think it's a really good climax to the movie. What do you think?
I thought it was a good climax to the movie. It really did bring out the humanity and even the two drug dealers, where they didn't kill two bear cubs even when their boss told them to, just because they know that would be a pretty piece of shit thing to do.
Yeah.
So, and it ends up in the end, when all the characters that are still alive meet up, they all pretty much band together against Sid, because he's just proves to be a total asshole. Even, I mean, he's a drug king, so I mean, it's kind of, I guess that kind of thing's kind of
comes with the trade,
right? But yeah, And it was good to see, I liked how they made it to where the bear was victorious because it got to keep all the cocaine for herself and her cubs. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really not good.
Yeah.
But one thing, is it actually cool if I tell a story about a funny incident with a bear I had?
Yeah. I was probably gonna tell a story in a minute too. So yeah.
Pretty much when I was, as I've mentioned before on this channel, I was actually in AmeriCorps, and when one of our assignments was to work on this girls' summer camp in upstate New York, and we were actually in a place called Bear Mountain State Park. And one night when we were watching a movie in the media room, somebody sounded a Sager horn, which there meant that a bear was outside, and my teammates were all just like, what's going on? I was just like, I'm sure it's nothing, but I'll look out and check. And within a second of looking out the window, I see a black bear just walking up the road at the camp, and I freak out because I'm just like, oh my god, there's a bear outside. But the rest of my team are just like, yeah, and like, does it have C4 strapped to it? What's the big damn deal? So apparently, I didn't know black bears at least, were more peaceful than a lot of people think they are. But, the rest of my team knew. And not only did we see a bear then, but a bear also went through the dumpster at the camp and poured everything out, and it spread. And one of the pieces of trash it spread out on the road was a dildo box. Not even joking. And we were the only ones there at the time, so it had to be one of our teammates.
Yeah.
So, and one of our teammates at the end, when she was making an Instagram post talking about the service term, she listed all the things that happened, like doing controlled burns, helping the veterans wheelchair games in New York City, to quote, having a damn bear outing me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. The story that I was going to tell kind of pertains to this movie. When I was in, I wouldn't say 11th, it may have been 10th or 11th grade, we had this substitute teacher. His name was Mr. Weaver. I asked him one time, what do you think the worst type of criminal is? And he told me drug dealers. And I thought, what? They're burglars and murderers. Like, why do you think the drug dealers are the worst? And it's just like, there's something off to me about someone profiting off of someone's poor judgment. And that always stuck with me because I didn't understand it at the time, but I think I understand it a little bit more now. There's a typical phrase in anti-drug ads that's, the first one's always free. The goal of a drug dealer is to get you hooked beyond help. And I think we here at Out the Horror do not endorse any type of drug use. So if you're addicted to any sort of terrible drug, such as cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, meth, or anything of the sort, I would deeply advise getting help, and I think I speak for the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this episode was not meant to make light of drug use, and yeah. But other than that, I do really like the ending scene, and again, I think it's very fitting. We then have a denouement at the force station where they're able to all get back to their cars, except for the cop who ends up just hitchhiking with the bag of cocaine. And Eddie, David, and David, who we thought died but is actually alive, both have Bob's dog, and Eddie goes to reunite with his son. And yeah, that's the end of the movie. So, final thoughts. I guess I'll go first. I think this movie was just a really good time. I had a certain expectation for it, and I got exactly what I was expecting. It was a dark humor Friday night movie that I could watch with my friends and enjoy. Nothing more, nothing less, and I think it, for its niche, it hit that out of the park. What do you think?
I liked it too. I kind of felt like the way you did, where it was kind of like a horror comedy.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Scary Movie franchise.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of got something in there for everyone, and you know, it's so yeah. I mean, I really did like it. I thought that it, you know, I was expecting it to be just like really cheesy, but it was actually well done.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think I would give this movie probably an 8 out of 10.
I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Alright. Well, I am Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
This has been Oh the Horror. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.